Respectful greetings, dear viewer, thank you for your attention. Let's recap what Jesus Christ wants us to do. 1. To tear off, from the Bible the Old Testament part, it's done, reject it. 2. To not be docile, brainwashed and ignorant. 3. Zero tolerance, for human exploitation and abuse, from absolutely anyone. All people are created equal. That being said, let me tell you this very important fact, how Gorbachev and Reagan's friendship helped thaw the Cold War. Two people from opposite ends of the ideology spectrum, one was an avid capitalist, an actor turned U.S. president determined to quash America's nuclear arms race with the Soviet Union's evil empire. The other, committed communist who rose through the political ranks to lead the USSR, pushing publicly for reform. But Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev, with an unusual understanding of each other and need for peace on this planet, managed to forge not only mutual respect but a friendship, which helped end the Cold War. The Cold War was a period of geopolitical tension marked by competition and confrontation between communist nations led by the Soviet Union and Western so-called democracies including the United States. During World War II, the United States and the Soviets fought together, as allies against Nazi Germany. Attention here, think, United States and Soviets fought together, as allies against Nazi Germany. However, U.S./Soviet relations were never truly friendly. Americans had long been wary of Soviet communism and Russian leader Joseph Stalin's tyrannical rule. Remember here, no foreign entanglement was overlooked, once the Nazis were brought here in the US under the Paperclip Project. On the other hand, the Soviets resented Americans' refusal to give them a leading role in the international community, as well as America's delayed entry into World War II, in which millions of Russians died. Take a moment and think, be logical and connect the dots. So, these grievances ripened into an overwhelming sense of mutual distrust and enmity that never developed into open warfare, thus the term Cold War. Soviet so-called expansionism into Eastern Europe fueled many Americans' fears of a Russian plan to control the world. Meanwhile, the USSR came to resent what they perceived as US officials' bellicose rhetoric, arms buildup, and strident approach to international relations. In such a hostile atmosphere, no single party was entirely to blame for the Cold War. Some low-IQ historians paid by war lovers believe it was inevitable. By the time World War II ended, most American officials agreed that the best defense against the Soviet threat was a strategy called containment. Wonder why? When the Soviets were decimated by the war, losing a huge amount of human life, infrastructure, industry, weaponry and any ability to fight, for many decades, just because the Nazis wanted to erase Russia from the face of the earth. By the end of World War II, the whole of Europe was destroyed too, along with Russia. So wonder why the containment was American foreign policy for the next 4 decades? Okay, let's change course and follow the friendship and collaboration between Gorbachev and Reagan. I think, frankly, that President Gorbachev and I discovered a sort of a bond, a friendship between us, that we thought could become such a bond between all the people, Reagan told journalists in Moscow during a visit in 1990. But moving from evil to friendship wasn't automatic. Reagan was initially wary of the kind of leader Gorbachev would be. Reagan and Gorbachev both saw change. Gradually, Reagan realized Gorbachev was also a man, not that different from himself, a national leader who wanted the best for his people, and logical enough to avoid a nuclear war. The result was that President Ronald Reagan and Soviet General Secretary Mikhail Gorbachev signing the Arms Control Agreement banning the use of intermediate-range nuclear missiles, the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Reduction Treaty, in 1987. Both Reagan and Gorbachev recognized that change was coming, and both wanted to be on the right side of history. But they needed to find a way to overcome 40 years of Cold War ideology. They needed to find a way to trust each other. It is great that they found a common way, Otherwise, we wouldn't be alive today. Reagan also, retired Evil Empire label, and Gorbachev meeting with Reagan while visiting the United States for the 43rd session of the United Nations General Assembly, in 1988. He expressed a deep desire to reform the Soviet system and improve living standards, he says. He recognized that ratcheting down military expenditures and modulating the Cold War were necessary preconditions for achieving his domestic priorities. No more military bases outside Russia, more resources for developing his citizens' standard of living, he begins to think as all good leaders and real patriots should think. So then, he brought back home the boys and girls in uniforms, keeping his promise to Reagan and making people happy at home. This happened when two logical and good leaders were at the wheel. Because, today's developments are the clear opposite, no logic, no good leadership, actually is complete evil. Why I am saying this, listen to this, US to deploy nukes in UK for the first time in 15 years amid Russian so-called aggression. The United States plans to deploy nuclear weapons in Great Britain for the first time in 15 years as the threat from Russia increases somehow, by being in their own country from around 1988, does not matter, right? War makes more money for psychos in one day, than a year of peace, so, the Royal Air Force Base Lakenheath in Suffolk confirmed that the United States intends to deploy nuclear warheads at the airbase. These warheads are reported to be 3 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The US withdrew nuclear warheads from Great Britain in 2008, believing that the Cold War threat from Russia had diminished. The revelation of this information comes amid warnings that NATO countries need to prepare their citizens for a potential war with Russia. US and Europe are talking about war with Russia. Oh my God, it is so sad. Last week, Admiral Rob Bauer, a high-ranking NATO military official, stated that individuals should prepare for a total war with Russia within the next 20 years, necessitating significant changes in their lives. General Sir Patrick Sanders, the head of the British Army, further warned that in the event of a war with Russia, the public would need to be mobilized as the military was too small. While they gonna be deep in bunkers and special luxury bomb shelters, all built on hard work and taxes, on us the population, who will feel the wrath of war, on our skin, witnessing the destruction and immense sufferings, that come with this evil. Other paper tigers, bunker dwellers, evil things. 1. The former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, supported Sir Patrick's call to create a civilian army, pledging to join if the UK entered a war with Russia, and the other, US Secretary of the Navy Carlos Del Toro urged the UK to reassess the size of its armed forces. The Western countries, including Germany, Italy and Japan, who, not too long ago, were allies and our enemies, in World War II, are against Russia, Iran and North Korea. The return of American weapons to the UK is part of a NATO-wide program to develop and upgrade nuclear sites in response to heightened tensions with the Kremlin in the wake of the February 2022 invasion of Ukraine, is their excuse. In response, Russia has stated that the deployment of American weapons in Great Britain would be considered by Moscow as an escalation and would be met with compensating countermeasures. In addition to the conflict in Ukraine, the West is facing growing challenges from Iran and North Korea, which have become closer to Russia in recent years. On Friday, the UK, France, and Germany condemned Iran for launching a new satellite for long-range missile targeting. Tehran is enriching uranium for potential use in developing nuclear weapons. The US and the UK are also conducting strikes in the Red Sea against Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen, who are attacking container ships allegedly in response to military aggression by Israel in the Gaza Strip, we were told. Unedited documents in the U.S. Department of Defense procurement database reveal plans for a nuclear mission that will inevitably take place at the RAF Lakenheath Air Base in the UK, where nuclear weapons were stationed during the Cold War. Of course, the Pentagon had refused to comment on speculation that a new Shorty dormitory, first revealed, in budget documents, the last year 2023, was intended for the base, which is run by the U.S. Air Force under British regulations and laws, to allow the U.S. to house tactical nuclear weapons that can be deployed by F-35 fighter jets, is also stated. The term surety is used by the Pentagon to denote the need to ensure the security of nuclear weapons when not in use. Documents show that the Pentagon has ordered new equipment for the base, including ballistic shields designed to protect military personnel from attacks on high-value assets. Construction of a new residential complex for U.S. military personnel working at this facility will begin in June. Official U.S. statements: it is expected that the RAF Lakenheath Air Base in the UK will host B-61-12 gravity bombs with a potential yield of up to 50 kilotons. Joe Biden has stated that the U.S. will strengthen its military presence in Europe in response to changes in the security situation. The U.S. has already announced plans to deploy 2 squadrons of 5th-generation F-35 fighter jets capable of carrying bombs to the 48th Fighter Wing at the RAF Lakenheath Air Base. In October, U.S. officials requested congressional approval to begin developing a new B-61 bomb with a larger yield and more billions of dollars, arguing that more powerful weaponry would provide the president with additional capabilities against some more complex military targets. Currently, the U.S. has nuclear warheads in Belgium, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands and Turkey under the NATO agreement for the joint use of nuclear weapons. Russian so-called attack on NATO. In recent times, Western well-paid and questionable media extensively covered discussions about Russia's intentions to launch an attack on NATO countries. Scenarios and infographics were published. Officials have already begun calling for preparations for a possible war. Discussions began after the German tabloid Bild published what it claimed was a secret document, Defense Alliance 2025. Of course, even the head of Germany's Federal Intelligence Service, Bruno Kahl, also stated that Vladimir Putin would not hesitate to attack NATO. If Ukraine were forced to surrender, it would not quench Russia's thirst for power. For more details on this, the military capabilities of Russia and NATO, and how the conflict might unfold. Remember, follow the money. One day of war makes more profit for psychos than 1 year of peace. Jesus Christ told us that there will be wars and rumors of wars. Today we call it propaganda. Jesus Christ also stated, "Live by the sword, die by the sword." Better remember Gorbachev and Reagan's friendship, the agreement that defused the tension between the two nations. Young people of one nation should not kill other young people of other nation, for the amusement and profits of some grumpy psychos, older men, who give orders from the safety of underground luxury bunkers. They want to fight, they should lead by example in the front line.